What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin coming to you from the Big Blue Nation once again, and today I was going to talk to you about a really festive kind of plant, the poinsettia, or the scientific name Euphorbia pulcherrima. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard it called the poinsettia, but it can be pronounced poinsettia or poinsettia. Now, I've always heard it called the poinsettia, but I believe the Midwest call it the poinsettia, so it can be pronounced either way. They're both correct. But it's also called the Christmas flower, the lobster flower, and the flame leaf flower as well. Now, they call these modified leaves flowers, but they're not actually flowers. They are just modified leaves called bracts. And if you actually kind of look in here, down around in the middle of these red parts, you'll see the actual little flowers. Those are the actual flowers, and that's really what these bracts do. They are modified flowers that kind of send a signal to the pollinators. They kind of show, hey, these flowers are right here in the middle, and bring attention to them so that they're easily kind of accessed by the pollinators. Now, this plant has been associated with Christmas for a long time. I believe in Mexico around the 16th century, there was a little story about a little girl named Pepita, or Maria, and she was going to the celebration of Jesus' birthday, and she was extremely poor and didn't have money for a gift. So depending on which story you read, an angel either comes down to her or she's going with her brother, and he suggests that even the poorest of gifts are seen as extravagant and a great gift through the eyes of Jesus, as long as they are given with love. But the brother or the angel actually convinces her to grab some weeds on the side of the road and just give them with love to present them to Jesus for his birthday celebration. And then whenever she presents them, they actually turn into these beautiful little flowers with red, and they actually become the poinsettia. Now, another reason why it is actually known as a Christmas flower is because the star of the little bracts, if you look, they almost kind of resemble a star. Now, it's supposed to be the Star of Bethlehem, and then the red color is supposed to resemble the sacrifice of Jesus' blood, and then the white flowers are supposed to represent his purity as well. So they've been tied in with Christmas for a long time, and actually they weren't introduced into America until about the 1800s. There was a man named Joel Roberts Poinsett. He was actually a doctor, and he was the first ambassador to Mexico, appointed under President Madison, and he was a doctor, but his first love was always botany, and he was really interested in flowers. And around 1828, he came down to visit Mexico, I think towards the southern end, and he actually found these poinsettias, where he actually became really obsessed with them. And Joel actually maintained a hothouse in South Carolina, so he sent a couple of them back and actually kept them there. But he is credited to be the actual first person that brought the poinsettia to America. And actually, December 12th is National Poinsettia Day. That actually commemorates the death of Joel Roberts Poinsett. So December 12th is actually National Poinsettia Day here in America. Now, these plants can actually be a little tricky to kind of grow. I know a lot of people actually get them and then they'll throw them out right after Christmas, just because they are really fussy. Whenever you kind of keep them year round, you have to actually pinch them back, stop watering before the summertime, and then as the summer draws to an end, you want to start watering again. But if you are like me and you want to try and keep one all throughout the year, there's a plethora of knowledge on the internet, and it'll actually tell you exactly what you should do month by month in order to keep your poinsettia actually healthy and thriving so it will bloom again next year. But unfortunately, a lot of us think it's too complicated to even do, and they're so readily available that you can go out and buy another one for just a couple bucks, and you won't actually have to struggle with keeping it alive and maintaining it throughout the rest of the year. Now, these plants actually come from Mexico, so they are very, very tropical plants, and they really do kind of resemble that. So if you're out and you see a poinsettia that you want to keep, you actually should know how to identify a really good one, or one that's been taken care of the right way. It's really funny that here in America, they are really kind of popular Christmas flowers. Down and around Mexico, they will kind of bloom around the wintertime, but they're not cold tolerant at all. So if you're ever going to a big box store and you see poinsettias, and maybe they're in the little vestibule area where they keep the carts, if they keep them in there, I always kind of cringe, because right there when the door opens, all that cold air will come in, and then when the store door opens, all that hot air will come in too. So it's not really ideal to see poinsettias kept right there. And if they are, you definitely don't want to buy one, because as soon as you get those home and you start to give it a little bit of TLC, the leaves will wilt and probably fall off, and you won't have the best poinsettia. So if you ever see them kind of kept in there where they keep the carts in the vestibule close to where any cold air can come to them, don't purchase those, because those will be really stressed out and probably won't live too long and definitely won't look their best. Make sure you get one that has been kept in a sleeve, because you do want some kind of protection, even that little walk from the store to your car. If it's really cold outside or even just a little bit chilly, you can actually mess your poinsettia up. So make sure if you're going to buy one, you have one that's been kept in a sleeve. And even still, I would take another little plastic bag and wrap it over the top to kind of keep it sheltered a little bit from the cold weather. And if you do that, your plant will look pretty well for a while. Some people actually say they can keep the blooms going for about 6 months, but that is kind of a stretch. I know in nature, like I said, they're found in southern Mexico, kind of around the Central American area. In nature, they can actually grow to a small little bush and like the small little tree also. They can actually reach anywhere from like 8 to 15 feet. But yeah, if you do keep them for a while, they actually can kind of resemble a tree almost. But we always kind of try and pinch them back to kind of help them with the bushiness, to make sure that they actually grow and they bloom and look really well. Now, when actually keeping your poinsettias alive in your house, you got to remember they are tropical plants, so they do like bright light. I wouldn't say very direct light. I would say a couple hours of direct light though, maybe about 3 or 4, somewhere in there, kind of a medium range, but they do like kind of bright light areas. So if you do have yours kind of sitting maybe around an east facing window, so it'll get ample morning light and kind of brighter shade in the rest of the day, that's probably ideal for a poinsettia. But if you have a southern facing window or a west facing window, I would scoot it back a little bit. That way it won't get a whole bunch of direct bright light actually bombarding the leaves and actually hurting the plant, because the leaves will actually scald and burn a little bit if they get too much direct light. So you got to be very careful with that. I will actually probably put mine after the Christmas in front of the grow light for a little bit and see how it does with that. But just whenever you're going to select a place, I would recommend probably an east facing window, but a western facing window will actually suffice if you have it scooted back just a little bit. They do like their humidity too. It suggests that you actually spritz them a couple of times, but I have a humidifier, so remember, in the wintertime, our homes are often kept bone dry and very hot. Now the heat is okay for them as long as it's not up in like the 90 degrees, but if you have some humidity, your poinsettia will actually really appreciate that as well. Now talking about water, I want to tell you that, they have these poinsettias wrapped up in these little foil pot holders, if you will. Now I actually take mine and I actually cut a little slit in the bottom of it right there. The poinsettias do not like to actually stand in standing water. They don't want to have their feet soaking wet all day. So you'll probably want to cut a hole in that little paper. And I would let the water stand in the saucer for about 10 minutes to make sure that the plant can soak up as much water as it needs, and then dump that water out. If you let it stand in there all day, the roots will actually bog down and probably drown. So be very careful of that too. And then I water mine when about the top inch of the substrate actually gets to be about really dry. If you wait until the leaves actually start to wilt, damage is already going to start to occur. So be very careful, and you really want to be kind of hands-on with your poinsettia and just fill it every day or every other day to make sure that it does feel a little bit moist. And wait till it actually does dry out a little bit, but not all the way. So it's kind of in between there with the water and the humidity. It doesn't need too much, but if you wait too long and let it dry out, it may end up costing you your beautiful bracts or the flowers even. And in talking about temperature, I would say that you really shouldn't expose it to temperatures over 80 degrees. Now I know some of our houses are a little bit warmer than that, but if you have a really warm house in a dry area, you might be watering it at least once a day. And then again, if it is really hot in your house, make sure you have a humidifier, and that will actually help your plant last a little bit longer as well. Now, in keeping with the temperature, you want to make sure that your plant isn't in any location that is really close to a window or a drafty kind of door. Sudden temperature drops or increases can really kind of stress your plant out. So don't have it sitting too close to the window, especially if you live in the northern area, because cold drafts will actually cause your leaves to wilt and probably drop off. So be very mindful of that because it will stress your poinsettia out. Now, in selecting one, you always want to make sure that your plant does have a good amount of flowers on it. Now, when I say the flowers, I'm talking about the actual parts on the inside of the bracts here. There is no certain number, really, when it comes to that, but you actually want to make sure that they haven't really opened yet. If all the flowers appear to be open, they've probably sat there for a while and probably won't be in bloom too much longer. So pay attention to the little yellow or greenish looking flowers in the middle. And if it looks like a majority of those haven't opened up yet, you'll probably have at least a couple of weeks for your poinsettia, if not a month or two. And then the bracts, you also want to look at those and make sure that they don't appear to be torn or any of the leaves have any holes in them, that they all have maintained a certain color or at least a certain hue to make sure that they don't look like they're about to drop off, or maybe it's a little indicative of some stress. So be careful with that, because when they put the sleeves on too, they'll tend to sometimes not be so careful and break off a couple of leaves or a couple of the bracts, and it really just won't be beautiful. Also, kind of look down around in here and where the substrate is, and make sure that too many leaves haven't actually fallen off, because that just might mean that this plant has gone through a lot of stress, and it probably won't make it too long whenever you bring it into your home. With pests, though, I know since the substrate is usually kept pretty moist, it likes to be in a high humid area, you do kind of invite aphids or fungus gnats into there, so I know that can be a problem. Or even mealybugs can kind of run rampant with this. Spider mites probably would too, although I've never had a problem with that. But just kind of keep a close eye on it, and whenever you go to select it, I always kind of blow down around the leaves and around the substrate to make sure I don't see anything kind of fluttering around in there or flying off, because if you can see a bunch of little white dots, your plant probably is infested with something. So make sure that you're actually blowing on it, because it might just have a little bit of pollen or a little bit of dust on there that might look like a little pest, because I know this one's got a couple little spots on here that look like it could be a bug, but if you blow on it, it doesn't move, and the plant's actually pretty good. So be careful of that. And then the last thing I really want to talk about with these guys is the toxicity. Now, I know a lot of you have heard poinsettias are very poisonous, and if you have cats or dogs or kids, you probably shouldn't purchase one. But I'm here to tell you that these plants are toxic, but they're not very poisonous. Now, if you do eat a leaf or a bract or anything like that, it could give you a small stomach ache, but it says online also that if you eat a bunch of it, you would need to eat a lot of it in order to actually get a stomach cramp. So it is slightly toxic, but be very careful of that, because if you do have an animal or a little child that does like to put things in their mouth, I probably wouldn't purchase the poinsettia. But having one or two, you probably are in the clear, and just try to pick up any leaves that you see on the floor. Like I said, I have a dog and a cat, and I've never once had a problem with the poinsettias. So hopefully you'll know your animals a little bit better than I do, and like I said, if they do like to put stuff in their mouth, I just wouldn't even purchase it. Now, that being said, that if the leaves do break off, there is a milky white kind of sap or like a latex that actually comes out, and if that gets on your skin or in your eyes, it can cause an irritation. So be very careful of that, because it can actually bother you. Now, some people suggest wearing gloves whenever you're trimming it or pinching it back. That is actually very smart. So I would even wash my hands, especially if I didn't wear any gloves, whenever you go after the Christmas holidays and try to prune it back. Like I said, there are several different articles online that really show you how to take care of the plant after the holidays. So I hope this video does inspire you to keep one, to actually bring a little bit of Christmas joy into your house, a little bit of the holiday magic, and then hopefully not to just throw it out immediately after the holidays. It can be taken care of, and they actually can grow into nice little bonsais or little trees even. So I urge you to go out and try and purchase one and see if you can't keep it alive. And like I said, they come in various multitudes of different colors and hues, and they really are really cool plants to actually have, but they are a little bit tricky, so be forewarned of that. Well guys, I hope this video really does help you out when deciding whether or not to actually purchase one of these poinsettias. They are a great plant to have for the holidays, and they bring in a little bit of color and cheer to your house, but they can be a little bit of a diva whenever you take care of it. But hopefully this video will actually help you out whenever deciding what it needs. And if you haven't already done that, make sure you hit the subscribe button or the bell next to it. That way you'll know anytime that I've uploaded a new video. You guys take it easy, have a good one, and don't forget, always plant prudently. Thank you, YouTube.